This is a Buddhist nation, and it is through that Buddhist nation that we have allowed Islam, Hinduism, Christianity and other religions to come and establish a presence. No one can dispute that. We had the Nestorian Christians here in the 5th century. Arabs came here as travelers, as migrants, as preachers. They were welcomed. The king of Kandy had a covenant. He protected them, told them to marry from within Sri Lanka when the Portuguese were behind them during the Crusades. So we have to protect the Muslims. But we also must regulate the religious space, so that these extremist ideologies do not come to Sri Lanka. We are a plural society. We must have a tolerant form of Islam that exists in this country. Not the versions, the strains that came from Tamil Nadu Tawhid Jamaat by a leader called PJ, or by IS in the Middle East. So regulation of the religious space is pivotal. It is paramount for the security and stability of this nation. The next point I want to make is a very difficult one. Even President Rajapaksa, I have discussed this with him. I discussed this also with the President of Sri Lanka. We have to create Bahujatika Pasal. We have Muslim schools, Buddhist schools, Christian schools. We have Sinhala schools, Tamil schools. We can't do that. If we do this, we will be producing Muslims, and we will be producing Buddhists, and we will be producing Hindus and Christians, not Sri Lankans. This attack should galvanize the parliamentarians here to a point. Mr. Speaker, you are here to a point to create the framework, the legislation to do this. I personally appeal to you. I will even worship you if you can do this. Do this for your country as Speaker. People will remember you. Many of the politicians in Parliament today who held responsible posts, they should take this as their burden, because these attacks happened during their period. They have a responsibility. At least they must build the security structures to create the interventions to disrupt the terrorist ecosystem that is producing these terrorists. Otherwise, every year we will have an attack. Let me conclude my presentation by sharing that Sri Lanka has to build a rehabilitation program. Those who have been arrested, they have to be put under rehabilitation. Sri Lanka had such a wonderful rehabilitation program. 11,500 terrorists were rehabilitated and they were released. So I ask you, without any further delay, implement this program. Religious and spiritual rehabilitation, social and family rehabilitation, creative arts in rehabilitation, recreational rehabilitation, and also the psychological rehabilitation. If you don't rehabilitate those who are in custody, we will have terrorists. Those who we have arrested, when they come out, they will turn to IS. This is inevitable. Second is, we have to build a program for building bridges between the communities. The terrorist attacks damaged us, but the Muslim political leaders, after the attacks, went and spoke nonsense on television. I watched it myself and I was ashamed that we allowed them to speak nonsense. They said that they are keeping the swords to protect their women and also to cut grass. This shows their level of intellect and understanding of national issues. That infuriated the people of this country. So I want to tell you that we have to create programs to build bridges between the Sinhalese and the Muslims. The relationship between the Sinhalese and the Muslims is not the same. The greatest threat to us is not from IS. It is that we have damaged that precious relationship between the Muslims and the Sinhalese. It is true that those who went and attacked those innocent Muslims are poorly educated. They had national passions, because we have The cyberspace is not properly regulated, you see. But we have to address this issue. For this, I ask you to create harmony centers. Every district should have a harmony center. Every village, every town, every city, every school should have a harmony library, so that we will have exchange programs to build harmony between these ethnic and religious groups. Finally, I want to conclude my presentation by saying that Sri Lanka suffered this attack because IS is spreading from the battlefield in Iraq and Syria, from the Middle East to Asia. Asia hosts 63% of the Muslims. Central Asia, South Asia, Southeast Asia, and Northeast Asia. South Asia hosts a huge Muslim population. If even 1% of that community is radicalized, we will have a huge problem. So we have to build the security and intelligence systems to fight this threat, to monitor who is coming into to Sri Lanka and who is going from Sri Lanka to other countries. Meaning the security and intelligence services will have to do 5 things. One is build common databases with the Indians, Maldivians, and other nations. Share intelligence, security and intelligence. Need to share. Second is we should exchange personnel between these countries. Third is we should do joint training. Fourth, joint operations. Finally, share experience, expertise, and resources. Let me conclude my presentation by paying a tribute to those men and women of the armed forces who were disempowered, whose spirit was taken away, but who have once again re-emerged after these attacks and hunted those terrorists and secured this nation once again. I pay a tribute to them, and I also ask all of you, do not smile again, especially the parliamentarians, until you build the laws necessary to secure this country. If you had done your task, this attack would not have happened.